What's going on, everyone? It's Jamie Mack back with another mock draft, and this will be my final mock draft of the 2020 NFL draft season. So I'm going to be doing a 3-round mock draft with trades, but all the trades are happening in the first round, and trust me, there are quite a few of them, so stick tuned for that. So with that being said, let's jump into the video. So with the first overall pick, we have the Cincinnati Bengals on the clock, and they are going to take the slam dunk Joe Burrow, the quarterback from Louisiana State University. He had a historical year, setting SEC records left and right, and he is an alpha dog, leader of men, and he is what you want as your quarterback. And so the Cincinnati Bengals are not going to screw this up. They're going to take the surefire thing, Joe Burrow, with the first overall pick. With the second overall pick, we have the Washington Redskins on the clock, and they're going to select Chase Young, edge rusher from Ohio State. And Chase Young is, in my opinion, the best bet for a Hall of Fame jacket. If I had to put my money on one player to get a Hall of Fame jacket out of this draft class, I'd put him. He's a beast, got 16.5 sacks last year. He is a force off the edge, and Ron Rivera is going to be so happy that he has someone like that playing for him. The Miami Dolphins strike the first trade in the draft this year, where the Miami Dolphins will trade up to the number 3 selection overall and trade with the Detroit Lions. And the Miami Dolphins are moving up to select their quarterback of the future in Tua Tagovailoa, the quarterback from Alabama. There has been a lot of smoke screens that Miami has been looking at Justin Herbert as the better option for their team. I'm just not buying it. If you look at the tape, Tua is by far the better quarterback, and if it wasn't for injuries, he could have been very well the first quarterback taken. It would be a waste for the Miami Dolphins to select Justin Herbert, at least trade up for him. If they got him at 5, sure, but Tua Tagovailoa is the far superior quarterback prospect, and I have him going to the Miami Dolphins. So the New York Giants are on the clock, and they select Tristan Wirfs, offensive tackle from Iowa. They picked the Combine Warrior. He set records in both jumps, in the vertical and the broad, and he ran a 4.85 at 320 pounds, and he's 6'5". He is going to be a very good pulling tackle at the next level. He could probably kick out on the right end for now and let Nate Solder on the left, and then he move over on the left-hand side for the rest of his career. There's been a lot of smoke about the New York Giants wanting to trade back and David Gettleman trading back. David Gettleman's never traded a first-round pick in his life, and so I have the New York Giants staying at number 4. So the Detroit Lions at pick number 5 select Jeff Okudah, the cornerback from Ohio State University. He is such a good prospect. He's top 3 prospects in the whole draft for me, and he is a cleaner version of Jalen Ramsey. He's long. He doesn't say much. He's just all business, all seriousness. He doesn't come with that extra set of politics like Jalen Ramsey does, and I love him, and I feel like he's going to make the Detroit Lion fans forget about Darius Slay, and I think this is a very good pick for the Detroit Lions. The Los Angeles Chargers are on the clock at pick number 6, and they are going to select their quarterback of the future in Justin Herbert, the quarterback from Oregon. He is physically exactly what you want in a quarterback. You would just like to see him put it together a little bit more. A lot of people are saying that they're going to pass on Justin Herbert in order to get an offensive tackle here. I don't see it. The Chargers actually have a very good team, and I'm a Broncos fan saying that, and I don't see them picking at number 6 next year, so they should select a quarterback when they have a position in the draft to get one instead of overpaying in the future, because Tyrod Taylor simply isn't the long-term answer, and it doesn't seem like they're going after Cam Newton. So pick your quarterback of the future and get a tackle later on in the draft. At pick number 7, I have the Carolina Panthers selecting Derrick Brown, the defensive tackle from Auburn. If Chase Young did not exist or was not in this draft, Derrick Brown would be the most talked about defensive player in the whole draft. He's so good. He's such a pocket pusher. He's very strong. He's very, very safe as well. And when K'Wan Short went down last year with an injury, the Panthers' interior defensive line struggled a lot. Vernon Butler is out of the door now. I feel like if you put him in the middle with K'Wan Short, you have that issue solved immediately. So I have them taking Derrick Brown. And we have another trade. So we have our second trade of this mock draft, and this one might surprise some people because this has not been talked about a lot, but I have my Denver Broncos moving up to the number 8 selection. Who they select here, a lot of people have been speculating they're going to jump up and grab a receiver. No. They're jumping up and they're grabbing the freak show, Isaiah Simmons, the linebacker from Clemson. You don't get one of these guys coming around very often. He is a unicorn at being as big as he is, as fast as he is, and being as much of a Swiss Army knife on the defense as he is. He's simply can do it all. He played corner, he played linebacker, he played safety on Clemson's defense. And Vic Fangio loves players like him. When he was in Chicago as their defensive coordinator, he selected Roquan Smith at the 8th overall pick. And so Isaiah Simmons fits the mold, except he's better. And so I could see Denver trading away a lot to get him because the wide receiver depth is very good. You can get a difference maker in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th round, 5th round even. And so why not grab a unicorn in Isaiah Simmons? And when you get the opportunity, I think Denver would be the team to do it. So moving on, we got the Jacksonville Jaguars at pick number 9, and they're going to select Javon Kinlaw, the defensive tackle from Southern Carolina University. He is very good. Some people like him better than Derek Brown at the defensive tackle position. I don't think he's even scratched the ceiling of what he's going to be as a pro. He has the exact same body type as Chris Jones, who's an all-pro, and he has the best win rate for a defensive tackle position in college football, according to Pro Football Focus. So if you watched him at the Senior Bowl, you can see that in action. No, he was unblockable, and he's a stud. And I feel like with the purge going on in Jacksonville right now, they need some young talent coming in there, and I believe Javon Kinlaw can replace the lost pieces on the defensive line in Marcel Darius and Calais Campbell, and potentially Yannick Ngakoue. So moving on to the 10th overall pick, and we have our 3rd trade of the draft. I told you it's going to be trade heavy in this draft, and we have the Atlanta Falcons moving up to the number 10 overall selection and trading with the Browns. So who do I have the Atlanta Falcons trading up and taking? I have them trading up to select the cover corner CJ Henderson, cornerback out of University of Florida. Some people have said that they like him better than Jeff Okudah in terms of corner. I don't believe that for one bit. Jeff Okudah is a special player. CJ Henderson is a very good cover guy. He has trouble tackling. His tackling is very poor, but Atlanta losing Desmond Trufant could go up and make a splash for a guy like CJ Henderson, and I could see them being very aggressive. All the reports coming out, especially close to the draft, have said they're looking to move up, and I believe for corner would be a very good place for them to go. So at pick number 11, we have the New York Jets staying pat at number 11, and they're going to take Jedrick Wills, the offensive tackle from Alabama. I have them taking Jedrick Wills, the tackle from Alabama, instead of Henry Ruggs, which has been a lot of reports recently because they need to protect Sam Darnold. Henry Ruggs can stretch the field, but if you don't have enough time to get it to Henry Ruggs to pass that long, because routes take time to develop, it's going to be useless, and you got to keep your investment upright. And getting a guy like Jedrick Wills, who is one of the best tackles in the draft, is a great way to do that. And so slot him in there and have a tackle on one of your sides, probably left side for the next 10, 15 years. He's a great player. Las Vegas Raiders at number 12 are going to select wide receiver CeeDee Lamb from Oklahoma. CeeDee Lamb is a do-it-all receiver. He's the best after-the-catch receiver in this draft. He's got very sure hands. He goes up and gets it. He's a stud. And the Raiders need a wide receiver to be what they did not get in Antonio Brown. CeeDee Lamb's all business, and I believe that he's a very good pick for the Raiders. I mean, they have their selection of a receiver that they want, but I believe CeeDee Lamb can do it all, and Mike Mayock likes leaders. CeeDee Lamb is definitely a leader, so that's where they go with number 12 pick. So now we have the San Francisco 49ers on the clock with the number 13th overall pick, and they select Jerry Jeudy, wide receiver from Alabama. He's my favorite receiver in this draft. He has special agility and movement skills, and he's a great route runner. And I believe this is a home run hit for Kyle Shanahan. People believe it could be Henry Ruggs here, but I just think Jerry Jeudy is the better receiver overall. And Jerry Jeudy can still burn by people. So Kyle Shanahan gets a difference maker at number 13. So the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are on the clock with the number 14 overall pick, and I have them selecting Mekhi Becton, the tackle out of Louisville. He is a freak. He's huge, 6'7", 364. Ran a 5.11 at the combine. He's a monster, and they need to protect Tom Brady. They need to protect the GOAT. So, I mean, they select Mekhi Becton. It's either him or Andrew Thomas, but I like Mekhi Becton's upside, and I think that would be very good to have him there and protect Tom Brady. So moving on, we got the Arizona Cardinals when they swapped with the Denver Broncos, and they move back and get the fourth and last top 4 tackle, Andrew Thomas, a tackle out of Georgia. I like him. He's one of my favorite tackles in this draft because he's SEC proven. He's a great leader. I think he's getting a little bit of shade for how good he is. I feel like he's getting not as much love as he should, and he's going to be a very good piece to protect Kyler Murray in order to get the ball to DeAndre Hopkins, Larry Fitzgerald, and Christian Kirk. So Andrew Thomas to the Cardinals. So we have our 4th trade. I told you this mock's full of trade, and trust me, there's a few more coming. We got the Philadelphia Eagles jumping up to number 16 ahead of their rival, the Dallas Cowboys, and they trade with the Cleveland Browns again. The Cleveland Browns trade back for the second time. And who do I have them going up and taking? I have the Philadelphia Eagles going up to select Henry Ruggs, the 3rd wide receiver from Alabama. Get him some speed. Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz has an absolute cannon on him, and having him and Deshaun Jackson on the outside, wow. And it's going to be scary. And it also takes a player away from the Dallas Cowboys, and very well the Dallas Cowboys could have taken Henry Ruggs if he was there. So it's a win-win for both. And I believe Doug Peterson and Carson Wentz are very happy that they get a burner in Henry Ruggs III. So moving on, we got the Dallas Cowboys at pick number 17, and I have them selecting cornerback out of Clemson, A.J. Terrell. Some people might not like this because of what happened with him in the national championship game, but Jamar Chase is a beast. He's a different type of receiver, and he's going to go top 5 in the draft last year. And if you look at A.J. Terrell's season overall, he's very good. He's athletic. He's tall. He's long. He can stick with receivers. He's fast. And they lost Byron Jones in free agency. You don't have anything on the back end. Your secondary is the weakest part of your defense. You need to get your number one corner if you let your number one corner go. And I think A.J. Terrell could be that. And he's a hot name rising. Who knows? He might even be gone by this point. The Raiders have said they might even take him at 12. But A.J. Terrell to the Dallas Cowboys at number 17. So at pick number 18, we got the Miami Dolphins selecting K'Lavon Chaisson, the edge rusher out of LSU. He has a very high ceiling, but he hasn't produced very much. And so he's a big boomer bust prospect. He could either be a guy like Danielle Hunter on the Minnesota Vikings, same alma mater anyways, or he could end up being a guy like Barkevious Mingo, who ended up flaming out in the NFL, also from Louisiana State University. So it's a hit or miss, but I think this is something that they can gamble on for the Miami Dolphins, and it helps them on the defensive side because Miami needs a lot of help all over the board. So I have them going with K'Lavon Chaisson there. So let's move on to the Las Vegas Raiders at pick number 19. They have Kenneth Murray, the linebacker out of Oklahoma. So they double dip in the Oklahoma pool. And as I said, Mike Mayock loves leaders. Drafted Cleveland Farrell over Josh Allen last year because he was an absolute leader. Drafted Jonathan Abram, the captain on Mississippi State, the safety. Drafted Hunter Renfrow in the 5th round. He wants captains. He wants leaders. And Kenneth Murray, according to the people at Oklahoma, he's the best leader they've ever been around. And that's saying a lot with all the quality players coming out of the University of Oklahoma. Kenneth Murray fits a need. He's a very rangy, fast linebacker, and he can do it all for John Gruden's defense. And I think this is a very good pick for the Raiders. So we move on to Jacksonville, number 20 pick, and they select the other linebacker, very similar, Patrick Queen, a linebacker out of Louisiana State University. And Patrick Queen is a lighter version. He's only 6 feet and he's 230 pounds, but he's the best coverage linebacker. And I believe he's a clone of Telvin Smith, who they had recently. And being able to rebuild what they had, I think they need to end up getting a guy like Patrick Queen to be kind of an enforcer in that second tier on the defense. So Patrick Queen to the Jacksonville Jaguars at pick number 20. So Cleveland Browns finally make a selection after trading all the way back for number 10, and they still get a very quality offensive tackle in Josh Jones, the offensive tackle from Houston. And if you watched him at the Senior Bowl, he's very, very good in pass pros. And he reminds me a lot of the pick last year for the Philadelphia Eagles, Andre Dillard. I like him a lot. I think he's a very solid tackle, and I think Josh Jones is going to be a solid fit for the Cleveland Browns and to protect Baker Mayfield. So the run on tackles continues as the 6th tackle comes off the board in Austin Jackson, the offensive tackle from USC, going to the Minnesota Vikings at pick number 22. So he is the youngest out of all the tackles. He's only 20 years old, and he is very promising. I feel like if he gets with good coaches, he could end up being probably the best tackle out of all of these players. Austin Jackson has a very high ceiling, as I said, and he's very athletic, and I feel like he just has a lot of room to grow. Minnesota needs help on the offensive line. If you watched them play last year in the playoffs, they got torched. Kirk Cousins had no time to throw, and so you got to protect him and give him some time to throw. So now we have our 5th trade of the first round, and we have the New England Patriots trading back and the Green Bay Packers moving up to the number 23 overall pick. And who do I have them jumping up to get? I have the Green Bay Packers jumping up to get Justin Jefferson, the wide receiver from LSU, the most productive college wide receiver in this draft, breaking records with 111 catches this year, 18 touchdowns, and he ran 4.43 at the combine, which was very surprising, a lot faster than anticipated. And they jump up ahead of the New Orleans Saints, who most definitely would have taken him if he was there. And so they get a weapon for Aaron Rodgers and a partner in crime across from Devontae Adams, and I feel like this is an excellent pick for the Green Bay Packers in order to give Aaron Rodgers some help in order to get back to that Super Bowl before he retires. The New Orleans Saints are now on the clock, and even though they didn't get Justin Jefferson, they get a pretty good consolation prize in Denzel Mims, the wide receiver from Baylor. He ran 4.38 at 6'3", 207 pounds, which is very freakish. And supposedly he played his sophomore year with a broken hand, which alters some of his stats, so he could very well be much better at the professional level than he was at the college level. I believe with Drew Brees coming back for only a year or two, they're going to go all in, and they're going to get as many weapons as they can. So get a guy like Denzel Mims to come in and take the top off the defense while Michael Thomas does his thing underneath, and Alvin Kamara and Latavius Murray and Emmanuel Sanders also contribute as well. So Denzel Mims to the New Orleans Saints. So now we have the Minnesota Vikings back on the clock with their original selection, and they select the cornerback out of Utah, Jalen Johnson. They lost Xavier Rhodes. Xavier Rhodes played extremely bad last year. They released him, and now they have a huge need at corner. And so they pick Jalen Johnson, the cornerback from Utah, a long-rangey corner who barely got beat in college, and he comes in and can slot in as the number one corner to line up with the best receiver on the opposing team every week, while Mike Hughes can come in, be the number 2 corner. So now we're at the number 26 overall pick with the Miami Dolphins, and they get a tackle, the Boise State tackle, Ezra Cleveland, the Combine winner. Obviously, outside of Tristan Wirfs, Ezra Cleveland killed the Combine. 4.46, 20-yard shuttle is absolutely insane at 311 pounds, 6'6". It's ridiculous. He's very promising, and I feel like he would be a very good blindside protector for Tua in the upcoming years. So they get a tackle, they get a pass rusher, and they get a quarterback, which is the most influential positions in football. So Miami had a great first round. Indianapolis strike a trade, the 6th trade in this draft, and they jump all the way up from number 34 in exchange with the Seattle Seahawks, and they receive the number 27th overall pick, while the Seahawks receive the 75th overall pick, which is a 3rd rounder, and the 34th overall pick. To Seahawks fans, this is no surprise. The Seahawks have not picked with their original first-round pick in 8 years, and so this is going to be a trend that will probably continue. And I have the Colts selecting the fallen Jordan Love, the quarterback from Utah State. Jordan Love is a hit-or-miss prospect. He led the FBS college in interceptions this year with 17, but he had excuses because all of his players and coaching staff ended up changing, and he tried to make a lot of things happen. But he's a very athletic quarterback. Some people think he could be Mahomes-like. I don't believe in that hype, but I think he could be a solid contributor for the Indianapolis Colts. And he doesn't have to play right away, as they just signed Phillip Rivers, and they have Jacoby Brissett under contract. And I think this is a very good opportunity and spot for Jordan Love. And so the fall stops at number 27 with the Colts jumping up to grab him and getting a 5th-year option as well. So moving on, we have the number 28th pick with the Baltimore Ravens. And the Baltimore Ravens select Zach Bond, the edge rusher out of Wisconsin, the very productive, undersized edge rusher. He's very twitched up. I like his athletic ability. I think he's a very good player. He is going to fit very well on that defense. It fills a need, as Matt Judon might get tagged and traded. It's a good pick for the Ravens, sorry. So I picked number 29. We have AJ Epinesa going to the Tennessee Titans, the edge rusher out of Iowa. And at the beginning of the season, he was a top 5 pick, but he tested poorly, and some people have questions about his translations to the NFL. But I really like AJ Epinesa. I believe this is great value for the Tennessee Titans, and the fall stops at number 29, and it fills a huge need for them across from Harold Landry, and I believe that AJ Epinesa could be a very impactful player for Mike Vrabel and the Tennessee Titans. So now we have the New England Patriots at number 30, where they traded back for the Green Bay Packers, and they will select Ross Blacklock, the defensive tackle out of TCU. He's a very violent hand user, defensive tackle, very twitched up, very good, prototypical Bill Belichick player, and I think he's great value at the end of the round here, and I think he's going to be a far better pro than he was in the college level, as he didn't produce nearly as much in terms of statistics, but if you watch his game, he knew what he was doing, and he was very good and very impactful. We have our 7th trade of the first round. We have the Jacksonville Jaguars trading up with the San Francisco 49ers, who have been very vocal about their wants to trade back and collect more picks, and so we have the Jacksonville Jaguars jumping up to the 31st overall pick in exchange for the 42nd overall pick, 116, 137, and a future 5th. And I have the Jacksonville Jaguars jumping up to select the first safety drafted in the NFL draft this year in Xavier McKinney, the safety out of Alabama. He's a very good, strong safety. He can do it all. He's very physical against the run. He's a great leader, and I believe he will be exactly what Jacksonville needs in order to put a band-aid over what the hell's going on over there with all the purging going on and all the players getting shipped out. It's just bad. And getting a guy like Xavier McKinney can come in and change the culture for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I like him there. I believe this is a solid value pick at the end of the first round. And to finish off the second round, we have another trade. We have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers jumping up to the 32nd pick overall in exchange for the Chiefs, where the Buccaneers will receive the 32nd overall pick, and the Chiefs will receive the 45th overall pick, and Tampa Bay's third round pick, which is 76 overall. And Tampa Bay Buccaneers jump up to grab Jacob Eason, the quarterback out of Washington. And some people may say, like, why would they do this? Because they already have Tom Brady. But Tom Brady is long in the tooth, and Jacob Eason fits exactly what Bruce Arians likes in a quarterback. Before Tampa Bay got Tom Brady, they were thinking about taking Jacob Eason at number 14. So getting him at number 32, and he doesn't have to play right away, which is very good for Jacob Eason. He can learn from obviously one of the best quarterbacks of all time, if probably is the best quarterback of all time, and he can sit, learn, and they also get a fifth-year option, which is another reason why I have them jumping up to grab him, because it secures a fifth-year option, which is decreased money at the quarterback position, which gives you more money to invest in other parts of the position, which is a winning formula for winning a Super Bowl. So Jacob Eason is the last pick in the first round. And now that we're done the first round, we're just going to jump over to the screen, and I'm just going to rapid fire off the second and the third round, so I'll see you there. All right, starting off the second round, we have the Cincinnati Bengals on the clock, and they are going to select Isaiah Wilson, offensive tackle from Georgia. They need to protect Joe Burrow, their new investment, and what better way to pair him on the other side with Jonah Williams, who they drafted last year in the first round. Moving on to the Seattle Seahawks, they're going to take Neville Gallimore, the defensive tackle out of Oklahoma. He's a high-effort player, exactly what Pete Carroll looks for in his defensive tackles, and it fills a need, and I feel like it's very good value there. Detroit Lions at pick number 35 are going to take DeAndre Swift, running back from Georgia. The first running back comes off the board. Many people think there's going to be at least one running back going in the first round. I feel like the teams have devalued running backs over the years, unless it's a very special player like Saquon Barkley or Christian McCaffrey. DeAndre Swift will be a very good complement to Kerryon Johnson and possibly take over the lead back role. With pick number 36, the New York Giants are on the clock, and they select Yetur Gross-Matos, edge rusher from Penn State. They are obviously disappointed that Chase Young could not fall to them, but they are definitely not disappointed in grabbing the long technician in Yetur Gross-Matos at the 36th overall pick. Moving on to pick number 37, we have the Los Angeles Chargers on the clock, and they're going to select Lucas Niang, offensive tackle from TCU. Without the injury concerns, Lucas Niang could have very well been a first-round pick, but he falls to the 5th selection in the second round, and the offensive tackle will slide in on the left side, protecting Justin Herbert and Tyrod Taylor for next season. Moving on to pick number 38, we have the Carolina Panthers on the clock, and they're going to select Jeff Gladney, quarterback, Texas Christian University. And they lost James Bradbury to free agency, so they come in and grab another corner there. Hopefully will be the number one corner there for the Carolina Panthers, and Jeff Gladney is a very solid cover man. Moving on to number 39, we have the Detroit Lions back on the clock, taking Jeremy Chin, the safety linebacker hybrid from Southern Illinois University. People are deeming him as an Isaiah Simmons-like player. He's not as nearly as good as Isaiah Simmons, but I can see it with his athletic ability and his versatility on the defense, which will be exactly what Matt Patricia likes. Moving on to the Houston Texans, first time they're on the clock in this draft, and they're going to select Cesar Ruiz, the center from Michigan, with the 40th pick. This is the pick that they got from the Arizona Cardinals for DeAndre Hopkins, which is the worst trade in a long time, in my opinion, and probably in everyone's opinion as well. But they use it on a very solid first-round type center, and they use that to protect Deshaun Watson. On pick number 41 now, we have the Cleveland Browns on the clock, and they're going to select Jordan Brooks, linebacker from Texas Tech. He's had a little bit of injury concerns throughout the draft process, but he is a very rangy, very explosive linebacker. Cleveland Browns have lost two linebackers, Christian Kirksey and Joe Schobert, to free agency, and so they bring him in to pair him with Mac Wilson and Sion Takitaki to make a very young linebacking core. Moving on to the pick number 42, we have Lloyd Cushenberry III, the all-time best draft name, center from Louisiana State. He's a very solid center for the LSU national champions, and he made all of the audibles at the line of scrimmage for Joe Burrow and the national championship Tigers, and he will be a rock there in the middle for Kyle Shanahan's offense. Moving on to the 43rd pick, and the Chicago Bears are on the clock for the first time. and they select Jalen Reagor, wide receiver from TCU. They lost Taylor Gabriel to free agency, and they're going to miss that speed element, so they bring in an even faster version of him and Jalen Reagor, and he's a far superior receiver than Taylor Gabriel, and the Chicago Bears are thrilled that he's on the board at this point. Moving on to pick number 44, we have T. Higgins, wide receiver from Clemson. He very well could have been a first-round receiver, but opted not to run at the combine, and then with all this COVID stuff happened, he really tanked his draft stock. So the Indianapolis Colts may have potentially got a first-round receiver in T. Higgins, but he falls to the middle of the second round due to poor decisions made in the draft process. Kansas City is finally on the clock after trading out with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they are on the clock with the 45th pick, and they select Christian Fulton, the cornerback from Louisiana State University. Kansas City always could use help in the back end. Their defense was much improved over last year, but they still could use some secondary help, and Christian Fulton is definitely a good value pick at this point. The Denver Broncos are on the clock with the 46th pick, and they select Brandon Ayuk, the wide receiver from Arizona State. He was often overshadowed by N'Keal Harry, but turned out to be a much better prospect in his year, as he is a run after the catch specialist and a return specialist as well. And I think Brandon Ayuk provides a very good complement on the opposite side of Courtland Sutton. Now moving on to the 47th pick, the Cleveland Browns select Grant Delpit, the safety from LSU. Once considered a top 5 pick, he tanked his stock this year by forgetting how to tackle. He missed 1 in every 4 tackles this year, which is unacceptable, but he's an overall very rangy free safety, and he will slot in there to replace Demarius Randall for the Cleveland Browns. Pick for number 48, we have KJ Hamler, the wide receiver from Penn State. The Jets need a speed element after losing Robbie Anderson to free agency, and KJ Hamler is definitely a speed element type guy. He's very good in his routes, and I feel like KJ Hamler could be a very productive receiver in his rookie year for the New York Jets. At pick number 49, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers on the clock for the first time, and they select Terrell Lewis, the edge defender from Alabama. Bud Dupree is in a franchise tag, and he is going to get paid next year if he produces in the same way he did in this breakout season this year, so they might need someone to replace him. So grab Terrell Lewis and let him learn from Bud Dupree, from all the techniques and stuff, and get him in there, and he will be a very solid addition to keeping that Pittsburgh Steelers defense very strong. Pick number 50, the Chicago Bears are on the clock for the second time, and they are going to select Cole Kmet, the tight end from Notre Dame. They just released Trey Burton, who is now an Indianapolis Colt, as I am making this, and Cole Kmet would be a very good target for Trubisky and Foles there, and they do desperately need tight end. Moving on to pick number 51, we have the Dallas Cowboys on the clock, and they're going to select Antoine Winfield Jr., safety from Minnesota. He's one of my favorite players in this draft. He's very undersized at 5'9", but he hits like a train, and he's seemingly always around the ball. And I feel like this would be a very good pick for the Dallas Cowboys, as they have been trying to fill that safety position for a very long time. So bring him in, pair him with HaHa Clinton-Dix, who they got in free agency, and now secondary is totally revamped now after grabbing 2 defensive backs in the first 2 picks. The Los Angeles Rams are now on the clock at pick number 52, and they're going to select Robert Hunt, the guard from Louisiana Lafayette University, the Raging Cajuns. They're going to select him because their offensive line was very weak last year, probably the weakest point of their whole team, and they really need to revamp that aging offensive line, and it is great to do it in Robert Hunt, who played tackle at Louisiana Lafayette but will slide into guard easily for Sean McVay's Rams. The Philadelphia Eagles are on the clock with the 53rd pick, and they're going to select Noah Igbinoghene, I believe it's pronounced, the cornerback from Auburn. They selected a wide receiver in Henry Ruggs in the first round, and now they come back and grab a corner because skill positions are dire needs for the Philadelphia Eagles. And they select a long, rangy, very good man coverage corner in Auburn's Noah Igbinoghene. Moving on to pick number 54, and the Buffalo Bills are on the clock, and they are going to select Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the running back from LSU. I believe that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the best pass-catching back in this draft, and Joe Burrow has coined him to be the best athlete on the LSU team, who are full of great athletes. I believe he'll be a very good complement for Devin Singletary there in Buffalo, and he will give Josh Allen a very good blanket to jump off to, as Clyde Edwards-Helaire has great hands. Moving on to pick number 55, we have Laviska Shenault, the wide receiver from Colorado, going to the Baltimore Ravens. He's a very talented receiver, but injuries have been a concern. Baltimore Ravens have not been shy at being able to draft players and make them unique in their scheme, as is the whole offense is catered around an unconventional Lamar Jackson and John Harbaugh system, and Laviska Shenault will fit in seamlessly, and he will have a plan every week for him. Moving on to pick number 56, we have Kyler Duggar, the the safety out of Lenore Ryan University, going to the Miami Dolphins. He's the best Division II player in this draft, and he showed out at the Senior Bowl, and he has very good athletic traits. He could be a very productive rookie, filling in for Rashad Jones, who just recently left. Moving on to pick number 57, we have Jonathan Taylor, the running back from Wisconsin. He will replace Todd Gurley. I feel like this is very good value here. He's a very productive running back. Sean McVay definitely needs to replace Todd Gurley after letting him walk. Jonathan Taylor will come in and be that guy. Moving on to Minnesota's 58th pick, they're going to select Chase Claypool, the wide receiver out of Notre Dame. His measurables at the combine were insane. He's 6'4", 238 pounds, around a 4'4", and the only other player to do that is Calvin Johnson, which is ridiculous comparison. I don't think he'll be Calvin Johnson, but he's definitely a high upside guy, and the Minnesota Vikings will definitely roll on that to try to replace Stephon Diggs. Moving on to number 59, the pick number 59, the Seattle Seahawks are on the clock, and they're going to select Netani Muti, the guard from Fresno State. One of my favorite players in this draft, as if you watch him, he just pancakes everybody he touches, and he's a very physical guard. He's got injury concerns, but I feel like he's the type of player that Pete Carroll would like to have on his offensive line to protect Russell Wilson and open up some holes for those running backs. At pick number 60, the Baltimore Ravens are back on the clock, and they're going to select Logan Stenberg, the guard from Kentucky. The recently retired Marshall Yanda leaves a huge hole on that offensive line, and they're going to select Logan Stenberg to potentially and hopefully replace him and solidify that line for the Ravens. At pick number 61, we have the Tennessee Titans on the clock, and they are going to select Cam Dantzler, the cornerback from Mississippi State. It is a huge need for them. The cornerback was a very weak position for them last year, and they lost Logan Ryan to free agency. He fits a need, and he's a very good player. He ran a little slow at his combine, but he is a long corner, and I feel like he can do very well for the Tennessee Titans. Moving on to pick number 62, we have the Green Bay Packers on the clock, and they're going to select offensive tackle from Auburn, Prince Tega Wanogho. They lost Brian Bulaga to the Chargers in free agency, and they're going to select a potential right tackle replacement in Prince Tega Wanogho, and hopefully he can keep Aaron Rodgers upright to finish his career. Moving on to pick number 63, we have the Kansas City Chiefs on the clock, and they're going to select J.K. Dobbins, the running back from Ohio State University. They let LaShawn McCoy go as he is getting up in the tooth, and Damian Williams is certainly not an every down back in my opinion, and so they bring in the very dynamic J.K. Dobbins to add to that insane offense as it is, and this is great value for them as J.K. Dobbins is a very talented running back. And last pick of the second round, we have the Seattle Seahawks on the clock, and they're going to select Trevon Diggs, the cornerback from Alabama. Pete Carroll has been historically known to take long corners and make them very productive, as in Richard Sherman in the late round, Brandon Browner, Byron Maxwell, and now Trevon Diggs follows suit. And I feel like this is exactly the prototype of corner that Pete Carroll likes in his defense. Trevon Diggs will potentially be a number one corner for the Seattle Seahawks. Pick number 65, third round now, we have the Cincinnati Bengals back on the clock, and they're going to select Bryce Hall, the cornerback from Virginia. They need some cornerback help in the Cincinnati backfield. Recently signed Trey Waynes, but you can never have enough good corners, and Bryce Hall is very good value at the top of the third round. At pick number 66, the Washington Redskins are back on the clock, and they're going to select Adam Troutman, the tight end from Dayton. They lost Jordan Reed and Vernon Davis this offseason, and now they are bare at tight end, and Adam Troutman was seen as the best tight end in this draft, even though he's from a very small school in Dayton, and he will be the third round pick for the Washington Redskins, hopefully filling a need. Now we have the Lions back on the clock, and they're going to select Marlon Davidson, the edge rusher from Auburn. He's a very nasty edge rusher, and he's very aggressive, and that's exactly what Matt Patricia needs on his defense, opposite of Trey Flowers. So I believe Marlon Davidson will come in and give them some edge pressure, which is exactly what they need on that defense. At pick number 68, we have the Jets on the clock, and they're going to select Julian Okwara, the edge rusher from Notre Dame. He has injury concerns, but he has the physical tools to be very productive. Hopefully this third round edge rusher will be much better than last year's third round edge rusher for the Jets, who was Ja'Kai Polite from Florida, who ended up getting cut in training camp, which is a shame, but Julian Okwara gives them edge pressure that they need on the Jets defense. At pick number 69, the Carolina Panthers select Willie Gay. Oh my God, didn't even realize this. Pick number 69, the Carolina Panthers select Willie Gay Jr., linebacker out of Mississippi State. He's a very rangy linebacker, and after Luke Kuechly retired, they do need some help in the linebacking core there, and I think this is really good value. He could even go higher with his measurables. He ran in the 4.4s at 240 pounds, and he's just very solid, and yeah, I'm gonna leave it at that. Let's pause on that for real. Anyways, pick number 70, we have the Miami Dolphins on the clock, and they're going to select select Cam Akers, a running back from Florida State University. They have him in the backyard, and Florida State has not been very good over the last years, but he is very promising. I believe he could be an every down back for the Miami Dolphins. Moving on to pick number 71, we have Justin Madubuike, defensive tackle from Texas A&M, going to the Los Angeles Chargers. He's a very solid defensive tackle, high effort guy, and this could be a nice pairing with the young Jerry Tillery, who they drafted in the first round last year. At pick number 72, the Arizona Cardinals are back on the clock, and they're going to select Damon Arnette, the cornerback from Ohio State. They need just the corners to match up with all the weapons in the NFC West, and Damon Arnette will give them a great third corner behind Patrick Peterson and Byron Murphy, who they drafted in the second round last year. So moving on to pick number 73, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars on the clock, and they're going to select Gabriel Davis, wide receiver from UCF. He's a very underrated receiver, but this receiver draft is so deep, and I believe he will be a great contributor as a rookie, as Marquise Lee just got released, and he will come in and slot right in there. Pick number 74, we have the Falcons on the clock, and they're going to select Jordan Elliott, the defensive tackle from Missouri. He's a high effort guy in the middle of the Missouri defense, and I think he's getting overlooked, and he's a very good pass rusher. So Falcons could place him next to Grady Jarrett, and this will be a nice formidable duo up front for the Atlanta Falcons defense. Pick number 75, we have the Seahawks on the clock, and they're going to select Tyler Johnson, wide receiver from Minnesota. And I believe Tyler Johnson is exactly the type of receiver that Pete Carroll likes. He's a possession receiver. He's very good and very sure-handed. And Pete Carroll has a knack for finding players late. He found Tyler Lockett in the third round, DK Metcalf in the second round, and undrafted gems in Doug Baldwin and Jermaine Kearse over the years, and I believe Tyler Johnson is going to follow suit in being a productive late-round receiver for him. Kansas City's on the clock, and they're going to select Jacob Phillips, linebacker from LSU. Often overshadowed by Patrick Queen and his athletic ability, Jacob Phillips was a very solid contributor for the LSU Tigers, and this is a solid pick for the Kansas City Chiefs. Moving on to pick number 77, we have the Cardinals on the clock, and they're going to select Ben Bartch, the guard from St. John's. He's a small school guy from Minnesota, but Ben Bartch has high upside, and they're going to continue to retool that offensive line until it becomes solid for Kyler Murray to stand behind, and Ben Bartch is going to be a high upside guy for the Arizona Cardinals. Cleveland Browns are on the clock now, and they're going to select Michael Pittman Jr., the wide receiver from USC. Michael Pittman Jr. is a son of an all-time great NFL bicep in Michael Pittman. If you don't know what I'm talking about, the guy was absolutely yoked, and now his son is entering the league at a completely different position, as Michael Pittman played running back and his son is playing wide receiver, but he's going to go to Cleveland and be a nice change of pace receiver for the Cleveland Browns, as they have more of possession receivers, and then obviously OBJ is not the same receiver as Michael Pittman, but he gives them a nice blend of players, and who knows what's going to happen with OBJ anyways. He might get traded, but we'll see what happens. But anyways, Michael Pittman Jr. is the pick here. The New York Jets are on the clock at pick number 79, and they're going to select Darnay Holmes, the cornerback from UCLA. The Tremaine Johnson experiment was an absolute failure, and so they're going to bring in a corner in Darnay Holmes, hopefully to be a solid corner for that defensive backfield. Moving on to pick number 80, the first of the back-to-back picks for the Las Vegas Raiders. They are going to select Troy Pride, the cornerback from Notre Dame. They need another corner there, as they drafted Trayvon Mullins last year, but they do need corner help, and so bringing him in gives them a nice addition to their secondary. Las Vegas Raiders are on the clock again, as I said, with their second back-to-back pick, and they're going to select Jalen Hurts, the quarterback from Oklahoma. There's been a lot of links to Jalen Hurts with John Gruden and the Las Vegas Raiders, and I think this is a good fit, actually. And Jalen Hurts is a winner at Oklahoma and at the University of Alabama, and I really like him here, and I believe this is great value. And he could even sneak in the second round come draft day. So the Dallas Cowboys are back on the clock with the 82nd pick, and they're going to select Harrison Bryant, the tight end from Florida Atlantic University. They recently lost Jason Witten to the Oakland Raiders in free agency, which is going to be weird to see, but they are very bare at tight end, and bringing in the very athletic Harrison Bryant could be a very good addition to that team. 83rd pick now, the Broncos are on the clock, and they're going to select Amik Robinson, the cornerback from Louisiana Tech, bringing in some additional help to the secondary, and they do need an opposite boundary corner opposite AJ Boye. So Amik Robinson comes in and hopefully beats that guy. Los Angeles Rams are on the clock, and they're going to select Josh Uche, the edge defender from Michigan, the very solid technician, as they need help to replace Dante Fowler, who they lost in free agency to the Atlanta Falcons. The Detroit Lions are on the clock, and they're going to select James Lynch, the defensive tackle from Baylor. He's a solid, high-effort guy in the middle of Matt Patricia's defense, hopefully replace a couple of the defensive tackles they lost this year. And the Lions are doing a very good job revamping that defense with young draft pick. The Buffalo Bills are on the clock now. They're going to select Nick Coe, defensive tackle from Auburn. They need some help in the middle of that line. They will do it via the draft with Nick Coe. 87th pick now, the New England Patriots are on the clock. They're going to select Lynn Bowden, the wide receiver receiver, running back, kick returner specialist, do it everything from the University of Kentucky. Lynn Bowden is exactly the player that Bill Belichick covers. He's a very dynamic, athletic, and pretty much a height, weight, speed guy. He's 230 pounds, around a 4'3", and he's going to be a very solid piece and weapon for whoever is going to play center for the New England Patriots. Pick number 8, we have a very interesting pick. We have Kenny Robinson, the cornerback from the XFL, formerly with West Virginia University, but he decided to go into the XFL route in order to get some exposure, and it's going to pay off for him as he's going to get drafted in the 3rd round by the New Orleans Saints. At pick number 89, the Minnesota Vikings are on the clock, and they're going to select Curtis Weaver, edge rusher from Boise State. Even though he was highly productive in college, many scouts are very skeptical of how his game is going to translate to the NFL level, but with the loss of Everson Griffin in free agency, they need to go and grab Curtis Weaver in the middle round. At pick number 90, we have Reggie Robinson, the cornerback from Tulsa, being selected by the Houston Texans, the aggressive Tulsa corner. They need help in the back of the secondary to pair with Bradley Roby and Garyon Conley. The Las Vegas Raiders are back on the clock, and they're going to select Bradley Anae, the edge rusher from Utah. Bradley Anae has some nasty to him, and after selecting 2 edge rushers in the 1st round last year, I believe you can never have enough edge rushers, and Bradley Anae is great value in the 3rd round. Zach Moss comes off the board at pick number 92, the running back from Utah. So back-to-back Utes go in this draft. I believe Zach Moss is a very underrated running back in this draft. If you watch his tape, he's got a little bit of Marshawn Lynch to him, and I think he's going to be a very productive rookie for the Baltimore Ravens, and it will be a nice transition after they move on from Mark Ingram eventually. Pick number 93, we have the hardest name in the draft to pronounce. We have Albert Owegbunam from tight end from Missouri. I'm guaranteeing I didn't say that correctly, but I'm just going to call him Albert O for the rest of this. Delaney Walker is getting long in the tooth, and I believe he's not even coming back, and so they need some tight end help there. So bring in the highly athletic Albert O, who tested very good at the combine, in order to kind of replace that need. The New England Patriots back on the clock, and they're going to select with the 94th pick Brycen Hopkins, the tight end from Purdue. They just traded away Gronkowski to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for a 4th round pick, so they're very bare at tight end. Doesn't matter because he was retired last year anyways, but they do need a tight end for whoever's going to play under center for the New England Patriots, so get him Brycen Hopkins. Just load up on weapons in this draft. At the 95th pick, the Broncos are on the clock, and they're going to select Matt Pert, the offensive tackle from the Yukon. Garrett Bull simply has been too much of a liability on the left side, holding all of the time, and so they're going to bring in a young left tackle to push him for the starting job. And at very worst, Matt Pert was going to be a nice swing tackle for Denver. Pick number 96, we have Tyler Biadasz, the center from Wisconsin, falling to the Kansas City Chiefs. He was once seen as a 1st round center, but off the field, concerns with injuries and also his inability to anchor properly pushed him all the way down to the 3rd round, but he could be a very productive contributor for the Kansas City Chiefs. At pick number 97, we have Afroni Jennings, the edge rusher from Alabama. He will be a nice complement to Myles Garrett on that defensive line, and he will be a nice sub-package rusher. Number 98, we have Darrell Taylor, the edge rusher from Tennessee. Patriots have lost a lot of players in free agency, especially on the edge position, so bring in some young edge pressure, and hopefully they can get that to replace them. At pick number 99, the New York Giants are on the clock, and they're going to select Troy Dye, the linebacker from Oregon. Though he is slightly undersized, he is very athletic, and I believe he can fit very well in that New York system, and hopefully alleviate the loss of Alec Ogletree, who they lost in free agency. The New England Patriots are back on the clock for like the millionth time in this round, and they're going to select Donovan Peoples-Jones, wide receiver from Michigan. They're going to receive another weapon for whoever's going to play, and Donovan Peoples-Jones, although was not very productive at the University of Michigan, has all the athletic ability in the world and could potentially be a very big steal in this draft for the New England Patriots. At pick 101, the Seahawks are on the clock, and they're going to select Ashton Davis, the safety from California, a former track star at the back end. He has dealt with some injuries in this draft process, so not a lot of coaches and teams have been able to see him, but he has high upside and will fit in there for Pete Carroll's defense. Pittsburgh Steelers are on the clock with the pick 102, and they're going to select Jake Fromm, Jake Fromm, quarterback, Georgia. And that's going to be an all-time fantasy name if some people jack Jake Fromm, but he is going to be the nice backup for the Pittsburgh Steelers because Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges simply couldn't do it. And Jake Fromm is a high IQ guy who has impressed a lot of coaches, and I believe will be a nice backup for Ben Roethlisberger and potentially the heir apparent when he decides to retire and hang him up. Cleveland Browns are on the clock now with 103rd pick, and the Shane Lemieux, the guard from Oregon, will be the pick. They need to continue to revamp that offensive line in order to protect protect Baker Mayfield and open up some more holes for Nick Chubb. And I believe Shane Lemieux is a great pick here. Pick 104, we have Devin Duvernay, the wide receiver from Texas. They lost Brandon Cooks and they traded him. Although Devin Duvernay is not the same type of receiver as Brandon Cooks, he is a very sure-handed receiver and very safe pick, and you know what you're getting. And Sean McVay likes those kind of players. So he is going to be the pick at number 104. And in pick 105, we have Damian Lewis, the offensive guard, LSU. He's a solid guard option for the Minnesota Vikings to come in and continue to revamp that offensive line, who let up a ton of pressure in the NFC playoffs this year. And Damian Lewis is going to be a solid option for them at the end of the third round. And finally, with the last pick in the third round, we have 106. The Baltimore Ravens are on the clock, and they're going to select Khaleke Hudson, linebacker from Michigan. He's a high-effort linebacker who will come in and add some value to that linebacking core. Alright guys, that's the end of the video. Thank you for sticking it out with me. It was a long video. We had to get through a lot of picks, but I did the best I can to kind of make sure that you know my reasoning for things, and also get some education for the picks of doing that. I'm so excited for the actual NFL draft tomorrow. It's going to be so weird doing it virtual and all that good stuff, and we'll see what happens. Maybe there's going to be some glitches, maybe there won't, but it's going to be an awesome experience. It's going to be a draft like no other. This draft will definitely have an asterisk by it for one reason or another in this NFL draft, so I'm excited to see what happens, and I'm sure that you are too. So thank you very much for tuning in to all my mock drafts throughout the season, or if this is the only one that you've seen, thank you for watching it. I appreciate it. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, what you would have done differently, what you would improve on, what you think is going to happen in the draft, because this is the most uncertain draft I've ever covered or I've ever looked at in probably about 12 years of following the draft. So this is just such an exciting draft for me, and I'm sure everyone is ultra excited for the draft just because of the lack of sports going on. So thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it, and good luck with your team in the NFL draft, and I'll catch you next time. See ya!